Yo, 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 visualize shark takes, hit the wave grinding. In the chat, gun shark odds make it rhyming. Sunday vibes, smooth bets, no confining. Hats engaged, can't stop us from shining. Bet on the spread, liking it, keep it tight. Push the odds further, jack on the hindsight. Odds fellows mind grasp in the right sight. Hats, caps on heads, winners in plain sight. Hit the light, get in the chat, feel the flow, cash it, every dollar see the bank roll. Sunday grind and picks, now you gotta know. Extra points on the screen, sharp minds always glow. Big parlays, predictions we home. Standing tall, betting knowledge all.
On a suddenly not so casual Thursday in November, not an ordinary one at that. It is Thanksgiving Day. Welcome to NFL The Extra Points, the big show, the Shark and the Gun, Thursday, November 28th, 2024, right here live on Sharky Waters Nation X and YouTube and the Guns Picks channel. If you guys are alive, if you're awake, if you're ready for football, we got tons of energy for you, tons of conversation, the usual analysis and top plays. Guns Picks, what's going on, brother?
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Hopefully your bellies are full and the bevies are poured. And we're going to enjoy a nice little slate of NFL action today, starting with Detroit. And I can't wait to get into this slate. We have the top plays that pay the bills, and I can't wait to dissect them with you today. If you're joining now, you're joining later, hit the like, hit subscribe, and get into the chat. Talk to us, baby. I'm ready, Shark. Let's do it.
This Thanksgiving 2024 is really an opportunity to step back and be grateful for a lot of things, but primarily at 12:30 p.m. that the Lions are relevant to professional football. I remember decades where this 12:30 game was an absolute dud snooze fest, and it will be far from that this afternoon. 12:30 Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan. 10-1 Lions, 4-7 Bears. We got two officials in this game. Throw it to the gun first. Over 47.5.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a high-scoring affair between these two divisional opponents. So situationally, both teams kind of walking into this game polar opposite scenarios, right? You have Chicago walking into the first leg of a 3-game road stretch, and you have Detroit coming into the first leg of a 3-game home stretch. And with Detroit, I can't say it enough. The best team in football right now, plus 16-point differential, plus 72 net yard average on the year, plus 20-point differential, plus 76 net yard average at home. And Detroit is ranked number one in offensive scoring, putting up 32.7 points per game, and they're third in YPP, second in yards per game. This is a tremendous offense that we have with Detroit. This is also the third straight game that Chicago has had to play a divisional opponent right back to back to back. Chicago in their last two games versus divisional opponents, they're starting to put up points. They put up 27 points and 19 points. The over is 2-0 in those games as well. Then you have Chicago. They've improved in the passing game last 2 weeks. 74% pass completion rate versus Green Bay. 66% pass completion rate versus Minnesota, and they put up 320 passing yards in that game. So you have an offense that's kind of coming into its own with Caleb Williams under center. Then you got Detroit's defense. They are known and susceptible of giving up passing yards, especially at home. They're giving up 65.1% pass completion rate and 244 yards per game in all of Detroit's home games on average. Then you have the Chicago defense. They've given up some points as of late now. I know everybody looks at Chicago and says great defense, but look at the last 5 games. They've given up 18, 29, 19, 20, and 30 in those games, and they're playing a high-octane offense with the Lions here. This is the highest total, by the way, that Detroit has seen since their loss to Tampa weeks ago, beginning of the season for that matter. So you have a high total here at home with Detroit. And this is Chicago's highest total on the road this season. And this is a team that's 4-1 to 4-0 to the under in their road games. So I think this is a high indicator. We're looking at a high total, and I think the Chicago offense has started to wake up since they fired their OC. That was a high motivational factor here. And then you got Detroit at home that's just been an absolute scoring machine. Let's cheer for points here at noon, folks. Chicago, Detroit over the total, 47.5 is the play.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with the total at all. And I think jumping off that in terms of the total, just briefly, when you see a funky kick time here, Thursday at 12:30, I mean, this is the only time all year that two teams play at this time. And more often than not in professional sports, not only football, when there's a weird kick time on a weekday, the defense is non-existent. And my official play in this game, taking Detroit at -9.5. And I think people are going to like that play. People love the Lions. I love the Lions. And if you guys have been following NFL The Extra Points, we used to call it Circa Millions, the show. We've been all over the Lions way before they were sexy. We've known about this team. We've known about Dan Campbell. We've known about Jared Goff. We love their mental makeup. And one crucial point when you open this handicap, Detroit has lost 7 consecutive games at home on Thanksgiving. This is the Motor City. This is a blue-collar town. They care more than your average pro football city. And the Lions have let them down 7 straight Thanksgivings on national TV. Dan Campbell, more than any other coach in the sport, is going to have his guys so locked into this moment to turn up and reverse that trend. And if you really go through these games, most of it was Matthew Stafford. There was a nice one-off cameo appearance by the notorious David Blau from Purdue back in 2019. And most recently, Jared Goff, L3. But if you go through those games, 2-point loss to the Bears 3 years ago, tight loss to a really elite Buffalo team in 2022, 28-25. And last year, took a home loss in the division, 29-22 to Green Bay. So I was looking at that game, and I said to myself, what actually happened in that game? Detroit came out terribly. Green Bay was quickly up in the game 23-6 in the first half. There was a fumble return for a touchdown. Detroit ended up dominating the box score, but just played a really loose football game. So then I said to myself, what was Detroit doing before the Thanksgiving games last year? Were they really good and they just couldn't play on Thanksgiving, which would be problematic for this year's handicap? No. They actually came into last year's game not in good form. The previous 4 weeks last year got blown out at Baltimore by 32 points, 38-6. Had a real lackluster game at home against the Jimmy Garoppolo Raiders last year. Took a real tight one on the road at the Chargers. And the game before Thanksgiving, were down 26-14 against Chicago in week 10, week 11, and came back and actually won the game late 31-26. So the point was, Detroit was actually cratering down to a really poor outcome last year at Thanksgiving. Not this year. This team is absolutely elite, a total unit. And when you look at the Chicago side of this game, Guns and I were talking about this before the show. This is a really interesting conversation. Chicago changed coordinators. They've lost 5 in a row. A lot of people see 5 in a row and think, okay, bounce back. But I think you have to look at the last 2 games. I think they already bounced back. Got hammered 3 weeks ago against New England, came back and should have beaten Green Bay. Missed field goal at the buzzer, 1-point loss. Last week, overtime loss against Minnesota. So if you really think about energy and psychology, you just left your best product on the table 2 consecutive weeks at home in the division and lost both in excruciating fashion. Now you got to go on a short week to the Lions, who are in a revenge game from last year. And as I said, will be so unbelievably juiced up to turn around this futility on Thanksgiving Day. Key point on this, as I mentioned, last time these teams played, Chicago 28, Detroit 13 last year at Soldier Field. Heavy line here. I have Detroit to win this game by 15 points. Buy it, live it, love it, and let's dominate. 4:30 p.m., Jerry World, AT&T Stadium in Arlington. Guns picks.
You forgot my prop, man. Were you going to do the prop?
I was so focused on getting to the amazing game at 4:30. I had to overlook going back to this game.
Doing the halftime show? Is that why? I don't know. That would make it amazing.
I mean, who doesn't want to talk about Drew Lock versus Cooper Rush? Let's go back to the first game. Cole Kmet under 31.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, we got to look at this prop. I'm the prop gun, baby. You gotta give a prop here on the show, and let's talk about Cole Kmet in his receiving here. Listen, if there's anything that Detroit can defend, they can defend the tight ends. They're ranked number 1 in DVOA against tight ends in the passing game, holding tight ends to 34.3 receiving yards per game. And you look at Cole Kmet. is coming off a stellar performance versus Minnesota, right? 10 targets, 7 catches, 64 receiving yards. So I think there's going to be a down skid here going against a good Detroit passing defense. With Cole Kmet receiving average, 4.2 targets, 3.5 catches, 38 receiving yards per game. And then you're seeing the total here at 31.5, which is 7 to 8 yards below his average. I think we're looking at an under here on the sheer fact that, well, I think the receivers are going to get a little bit more action. The Romo Dunes, I see in the chat, they put DJ Moore over on his receptions. I think it's going to be more wide receiver oriented in the passing game here for Chicago today. And I think Cole Kmet's going to have a little bit of a downtick on the receiving yards. So give me under his receiving yards as a prop, 31.5.
Well, thank you, Guns, for keeping that so short and sweet so we can get on to the marquee matchup.
It's the best.
I mean, unbelievable. I mean, this is why I work with you, because you know how to segue to these big-time games at 4:30. And truly, I mean, we're talking about an absolute disaster. If you go preseason, you're thinking, all right, upstart Giants, bounce-back campaign, Danny Jones, Brian Dable at the Prescott Cowboys, who are elite at home. Now, all of a sudden, you get Drew Lock versus Cooper Rush, maybe a side feature from Trey Lance. We're not sure if he'll maybe get on the field for a nice little 3rd or 4th down conversion or whatever. But nonetheless, this game is a disaster. We're going to see a classic, a great game, maybe a blowout at 1 o'clock, 12:30. But this is going to be an absolute disaster. Guns Picks looking at the under, and I have some comments.
This is basically a Maction game on a Tuesday is what we're going to be watching here at 4:25 at Jerry's World. I think the halftime show is going to be, I think Lainey Wilson's going to be the halftime show is going to be more exciting than what these two teams are going to produce today. In this game, what do you have for quarterbacks? No, you don't have Dak Prescott. No, you don't have Danny Dimes. You have Drew Lock and Cooper Robert Rush. That's who you got here in this game. And then you have a Giants team that's lost 6 straight, and they're coming off a lackluster performance with I was going to say Danny DeVito, but Tommy DeVito is what I wanted to say. 7-point performance, absolutely abysmal. Versus Tampa, and now you have Dallas on the other side, had a little bit of a scoring boost and a win versus Washington on the road, but that was aided by 2 special team touchdowns and one of the most insane fourth quarters that you'll ever see. The score was 13-9 with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and there's 5 touchdowns scored. If you had the under, I think you have a broken TV right now from watching that game. Both of these teams have underperformed offensively versus divisional opponents all season long. You look at Dallas, 20 points per game, 257 yards per game of total offense, or 2-1 to the under versus divisional opponents. And on the New York Giants side, 15 points per game, 263 yards of total offense, 3-1 to the under versus divisional opponents. They play their worst when they play divisional opponents this season. The last time these two teams met in the Meadowlands was on Thursday Night Football, ironically enough. And the total in that game was 45. Now you're seeing it swing to 37.5 in a climate-controlled, fast-track environment. I think this is just going to be a low-scoring affair with 2 backup quarterbacks on a short week. Both relatively have good, I mean, from a defensive perspective, I think they have good passing defenses. So I think it's going to be run-oriented from both sides of the ball, and that means clock killing, and that means low points, and that tells me everything I need to know. Give me the under in this game, 37.5 as the play.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I would say, one positive about this game is at 4:30, if you guys are having food and you want to sit down and not be locked into the television, this is perfect for a nice little 4:30 Thanksgiving dinner. And then you come back for 8:20. And speaking of 8:20, our first collaboration official of this card, and there will be more on Sunday. Get ready for that. Already recorded last night, an absolute fire 70-minute show with the Odds Fellow. But Lambeau Field, Miami on the road, a lot of narratives about Miami being unable to play in the cold. I don't think so. I think they can play in the cold. Guns is on it. I'm on it. Guns, talk to me on +3.5, and I'll jump off it.
Yeah, I mean, Shark's got a good scenario-based Mona Lisa-esque type of cap as far as the scenario goes. But I want to talk about the statistical element of why I like Miami. Now, Tua's back. This team has been absolutely humming, and not only in the offense, the defense has actually improved, and that is from the rush defense. Miami's held their opponents to under 100 rushing yards in 5 straight games since Tua's return. Miami's opponents average 78 rushing yards per game with Tua when Miami has Tua in the lineup. And that tells you everything you need to know. Tua can actually move the ball. They're scoring at like 29 points per game currently, and they're getting rested on, and they don't have to deal with the 3 and outs that the backup quarterbacks were giving them. When we look at Green Bay, when you're capping them, look at what happens when Green Bay cannot put up rushing yards versus Minnesota. Minnesota has one of the best rush defenses in the league. They were held to 82 rushing yards. They lost that game 31-29 at home. Then they played Houston, and they played Houston at home. And now we talk about Houston all the time. Houston, outside the division, on the road, typically does not play their best ball. In this particular spot, they did, because they held Green Bay to 82 rushing yards and only lost by 2 points. And Green Bay did not cover that spread. Then they played Chicago. Now, Chicago, they put up 106 rushing yards, so I had to put this in the sample, but they only won by 1 point. So what I'm saying is, if you can hold Green Bay to under 110 rushing yards, they're 0-3 ATS in those particular spots. And this Miami team is just thumping along. Rush defense is absolutely killing it. I think this is a good spot to take Miami. Even if Miami doesn't win this game, it's still going to be close enough that we could take 3.5 here. I think it's a perfect spot for the Dolphins. They're actually humming along, and they are a bye team. They're going to heat up here towards the end of the season and try to make themselves in contention for a playoff spot. Give me Miami plus 3.5 as the play.
Yeah, I mean, you're leading me right into it. Just want to give a shout out to the chat. Our guy Dabby Cab in the house. What's up, brother? Happy Thanksgiving. Peter Gracia, Jabaka, Brian Conley scrolling up. A bunch of guys in the chat. We appreciate you guys spending your Thanksgiving morning with us, and Dabby Cab dropping the heat in college basketball feast week. And speaking of the heat, Miami traveling to cold Lambeau Field, as I was saying before. I don't think this is going to be a problem. I think people are quickly remembering maybe far too much a playoff game that was played in Arrowhead in January in sub-zero wind chill temperatures. And I was saying to the gun on a call this morning, neither of us slept last night, of course. We've been handicapping this card all night. Joking, obviously, gentlemen. But we were saying, I remember watching Tua on the sideline in the playoff game in Kansas City. Like, it looked like it was the last day on earth. It was that cold. It was totally sucking the life out of everybody on the field. But if you look at how Tua has performed, I think most notably at Buffalo, obviously in the division, traveling there once a year to Cold Orchard Park, he's been effective for most of his career. So I think that's actually more of an isolated outlier, the playoff game at Kansas City, and this will return to the norm. And as Guns mentioned, Miami's a great bye team. Miami is sitting here at 5-6. They're 3-0 straight up last 3. People had written them off completely. Tua got hurt. People were telling him to retire. We talked about it on the show. We thought if the brain trauma was really that big, retire for your own personal safety, not because we don't want to see you on the field, but it seems like he's okay and he's playing good ball. They're sitting here with the 8th seed, 1 game ahead of Indianapolis and Cincinnati right behind them. So this is a must win, unequivocally. You can't say the same thing about Green Bay. Green Bay is 8-3, 3 full games clear of missing the playoffs. You're not going to ever say that a team's going to take a game off, but the pressure is certainly not on Green Bay to perform here. And if you really look at what Green Bay is doing, as Guns mentioned, we have this Mona Lisa, which is our new thing about the handicap being so ultra specific from like an artistic way environmentally. It's really fantastic stuff. This is the second time this year that Green Bay finds themselves in this exact calendar spot. And let me just draw you through it for a moment. Go back to week 4. They took a home loss to Minnesota in the division. Then they went on the road and beat the Rams in a tight game. Came home and hammered Arizona, NFC West, 34-13. Then stayed at home off a blowout against the NFC West and did not cover against Houston. They find themselves in the exact same spot here. Week 9, divisional home loss to Detroit. Went on the road, tight win at Chicago. Came back last week, blowout of the NFC West, 38-10 against San Francisco, and now get to stay at home, even worse of a spot on a short week against the AFC. And even more importantly, this is the same line structure as you saw Jordan Love and the Packers lay to the Texans. -3.5, won the game by 2 points on a late field goal. This game screams field goal game or 2 or 1 points versus the money line. And final point on this, Jordan Love in his career, 2 years as the starter here, 3-4 ATS versus the AFC. Looks like he's kind of on the mean, but I think more importantly, 0-2 as a favorite. And all those covers came against the AFC West last year at Denver, and home wins against the Chargers and Kansas City. Miami needs the game. It's an ultra-specific spot for Green Bay where they will let down off a blowout against San Francisco last week. Only collaboration on this week's card. Take Miami at plus 3.5 at 820. Enjoy some drinks, and let's cash this ticket. We're going tomorrow, Black Friday, 3 o'clock football. Good idea from the league, I think. I think it's a great time to have a game 3 o'clock on Black Friday. People are off. It's just a good time to watch football. A lot going on in this game, surprisingly for most. And Guns, any thoughts on this game? I have an official. I just want to take a sip of water on this beautiful morning, and then I'll jump into it.
Yeah, I got some talking points. I'm not on anything officially. I might find something later, maybe a prop or something for this game just to have a little action on it. But I think when you have a double-digit favorite here with Kansas City, you just got to take the other side. This team just plays to the level of their competition consistently. And I know when we look at the Raiders have just not played well. They're off a 10-point loss at home versus Denver last week, and they've lost 7 straight. Aiden O'Connell's going to be the quarterback. I think he had a thumb issue. It looks like he was announced that he is going to be the starter. So I think from an offensive perspective, I'd rather him be the quarterback than Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder doesn't really, boast any confidence in me on a bet. But I think in this type of position, it's just one of those one-off Friday type games that I think the motivation is just going to be lacking here with this Kansas City team. And then you look at who they got up on deck at home. This is going to be the first leg of their divisional back-to-back. They got the Chargers next week. So I don't know I think they may be overlooking this Raiders team altogether. And I would probably lean towards the Raiders side just on the points. And then, like I said, Kansas City just can't beat anybody by more than 7 points. Why would you ever try to take them as a double-digit favorite in any condition against any team? I don't care if they're playing Bowling Green. I would still take the other side as a double-digit dog. But in this type of position, it is Raiders or pass for me.
Yeah, you would take Bowling Green. The key question here for the fans here on this Thanksgiving morning, though, would you take Kent State against Kansas City?
Ooh, what's the spread? -40, -30,
-71.5.
71.5. Yes, I would take Kent State.
I mean, Kent State is getting 35 points in college football. He's 71.5. Yeah, Kansas State -71.5. 82-7 final. But that all being said, we don't see 82-7 tomorrow against the Raiders. Taking the Raiders officially here at +13. And truthfully, it's everything Gunn said. Kansas City has been lackluster all year against the spread. They've been laying egg after egg after egg. And if you go through their home calendar, every single game has been tight. And some of their covers probably shouldn't have even been covers. Go back to week 5. Derek Carr gets hurt late in a game. They barely cover against the Saints. They don't cover a primetime game against an injured Tampa Bay team. They should have lost outright to Denver at home on a blocked field goal inside of 30 yards at the buzzer. And then you go to their road calendar in the last few weeks. Didn't cover at Las Vegas. Got hammered in Buffalo at the final result, 30-21. And last week, we said it on this show. We didn't play it officially, but we did know. We just didn't pull the trigger. 30-27. Barely beat the Panthers on the road. And now, as Gunn said, you got to play a home one-off before you get a huge game against the Chargers next week. And this is just not where the Chiefs show up with their big energy. You have to really think off the field for this type of handicap. The Chiefs are absolutely big time. They are celebrities. And you think to yourself, what are they doing on Thanksgiving Day in Kansas City? They're not going to bed early and getting ready for this game. There's probably celebrities going to hang out with Travis Kelce. Taylor Swift will be there. Mahomes, his wife. Like, this is probably a huge party day for them. They don't care about games like this. When you win 3 Super Bowls and you basically go to the AFC Championship game or better every single year with Patrick Mahomes, A random Friday afternoon game after Thanksgiving means absolutely nothing. I can even make the argument they might be annoyed they have to show up to play this game tomorrow. Like when you're that big time, you start to take these games almost with disdain. Why the hell do we have to get up off some drinks on Thanksgiving to play this BS Raiders team at 3 o'clock on a Friday? And as I mentioned with the open to this show, when you get these weird kick times, I mean, this is probably the funkiest kick time of the entire season. Friday afternoon at 3, that does not speak to the favorite coming out with hyper focus at all. It totally speaks to the dog. And as I mentioned, you get a Vegas revenge game, having played them tight in Las Vegas. And even better, you get Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell is 4-0 ATS in his career as an underdog on the road. This guy performs excellent in this spot. He's 1-0 this year, covered at the Rams 20-15. And I think even more importantly, we saw this spot last year. Kansas City had to play a game on Christmas Day at home against Vegas on the same line structure, right around a 2-touchdown favorite. And O'Connell went in there with the Raiders and beat them outright 20-14. Black Friday in the middle of the afternoon and Christmas Day are very similar emotional spots, not where the Chiefs want to be playing football. And final point on this, I truly think this is a great spot to buy Antonio Pierce with this group. I said it last week, take Denver. Denver will cover in the division in Las Vegas. I know a lot of people had the Raiders last week, but I told you guys, take Denver. They'll cover. They did. Wait for the game after Denver when they go short week to Kansas City. That's where the Raiders will show up. I really like this spot. I see this game absolutely no higher at final margin than 10 points. Buy this one at 3 o'clock and let's dominate. Guns, did I convince you?
No, I like I said, I was like, this Raiders are pass. I mean, this is a perfect spot. And like I said, if you got Aiden O'Connell under center, and you said it on the road 4-0 ATS, it's the only spot to take. It's probably going to be, I'm like, I want to put my notes down. I want to put pen to paper, but I think I'm going to be on the Raiders by Friday.
Absolutely. Almost 30 minutes of fire on this beautiful Thanksgiving morning. The parade's about ending. If you guys have kids, I'm sure you have that on. If you're ready to watch football, we are ready to dominate. My 3 top plays on this early week card. Detroit -9.5. Collab with the Gun +3.5. Miami at Lambeau tonight. And Las Vegas +13. The Gun on a sharp over. Chicago, Detroit 47.5. Cole Kmet under 31.5 receiving yards. Dallas, Giants under 37.5. And the Collab, Miami +3.5. Have a beautiful day. We appreciate you guys immensely taking time out of your morning to hang out with us. We'd love to bring you guys the energy, the conversation, the analysis, and the top picks. Have a great day. Guns Picks, pleasure as always. Close them out with some words, and let's dominate.
Yeah, shout out to the chat. You guys showing up on Thanksgiving. Appreciate you guys. We got Stacks. We got Jabaka. We got Sean Murphy. We got Peter Grasnia. And everybody in the crew. The Candy Man is in the building, of course. Ross Ryback, Rob McMahon, Nasty Nate, Dabby, M-Liner, Ricky Levine, Brian Connolly, and all you beautiful bastards for joining here. Smokey Betts as well. This is going to do it for the Thursday Thanksgiving version of the Extra Points. Like Shark said, we already pre-recorded the NFL show. We're going to do that on Sunday with me, Shark, and the odds. That'll come out at 10 a.m. on Sunday. So go check that out on YouTube, or you can just check us out on X at Gunspicks, at Shark in Sports 88. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channels that we have, the Gunspicks channel and Shark Waters Nation channel. And get into the comment section. Tell me what plays you're on. Tell me if you love the plays. Whatever you want to do, just get in there. That's how we get in the algorithm of all algorithms that YouTube deems fit. That's going to do it here for the Thanksgiving version of the show. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Let's cash some tickets. Let's dominate the bowl. And as always, let's keep dancing. Bang!